One player from the Cardinals has been predicted as a major award winner for 2025. Find out who it is on today's episode of Locked on Cardinals.
You are Locked on Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafford, and I'm your host for Locked on Cardinals, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter X at JD Sports Radio. You can also follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. I do want to thank those of you who make Locked on Cardinals your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on YouTube. Please stop by, like, subscribe, comment, and hit that notification button so you know when new episodes are posted, because this is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball and one of the most patient fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode being brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so the internet is never, ever short of predictions for the upcoming seasons in any sports, really. And to be honest, I was a little bit surprised by this particular prediction that was made, because it involves the St. Louis Cardinals. You'd be hard-pressed to find anyone talking all that positive about what the Cardinals have done these days, specifically the national media, because, the guys and gals in St. Louis normally are going to say some nice things. Because most of the guys and gals that are in the media in the St. Louis area are fans of the Cardinals. Most of us grew up in St. Louis, and that's where we wanted to work, and we're Midwest type of people. And, we prefer, at least most of us, to look at the brighter side of things instead of constantly bashing the Cardinals. At least I know that's how I am personally. It doesn't mean we can't ridicule and point out when the Cardinals have made mistakes. There's been plenty of them on the rosters over the years through free agency and in trades. And it's kind of how the Cardinals got to the point of their organization being where it is, where we've got to do this competitive reset. That's what we're going through right now. But there has been a bright spot in the last 2 years amongst all of this turmoil that the team's been going through. And that was the acquisition of infielder Thomas Saggese. Thomas Saggese was part of the deal that sent Jordan Montgomery and Chris Stratton to the Rangers. In return, the Cardinals were able to get John King and pitching prospect Koa Roby and Saggese. And it's really been one of those win-win type of trades. If it's tilted anywhere, it's obviously towards the Rangers, because, the Cardinals were able to unload Montgomery. Jordan Montgomery was going into his walk year, and they were able to pick up a very useful reliever. They also got 2 prospects, some decent ones from the Rangers, and the Rangers obviously go on to win a world championship. So obviously it's going to be tilted towards them as far as how the trade ended up working out. But, now we look for, what do we have to show for it now? Well, Monty left the Rangers, goes to the Diamondbacks, where he was quite underwhelming last year. Chris Stratton goes to the Kansas City Royals, had an ERA of 5.55 last season. So not great. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, 76 games with the team. John King, he's been good. 4-3, 2.52 ERA, not too shabby. Koa Roby, he has dealt with injuries since coming over, but he's still rated as the 6th best prospect in their system. Still only 23 years old, so there's still time to grow there, and you're hoping that he can stay healthy and that he's somebody that perhaps we see up on the roster in 2025, surely by 2026. But the crown jewel of this deal so far on the Cardinals side of things appears to be Saggese, who won the AA MVP after coming to the Cardinals organization. Then in his first full year at Memphis, he hits 253, 20 home runs, and 67 RBIs, which prompted the call-up at the end of the season, where he ended up appearing in 18 games, and you didn't see anything all that fancy out of Thomas Saggese. He's not a fancy player, but he's one of those guys that I feel like Cardinal fans are going to like. I know at the winter warm-up last year, when you got to see him on the screen, I didn't get to talk to him personally, but, seeing him in interviews and seeing him interacting with fans, you can tell he's having the time of his life. It's a good fit. It's a good fit for him in the Cardinals organization. Arizona Fall League this past year, after, not doing so much in those 18 games when he came up to the Cardinals, he had a big Arizona Fall League season. Hit .391, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, 16 walks, an OBP of 524, and an OPS of 1.118 over 18 games. Once again, not too shabby. The boy can hit. The boy can play ball. And Saggese got some positive acknowledgement in a recent story by Anthony Castrovins from MLB.com, who, when predicting the major award winners for 2025, has Saggese listed as the NL Rookie of the Year. Now, granted, he did go 1 for 8 in his predictions about such things last year. The one he got right, though, was NL Rookie of the Year. He had Paul Skeens down. So could he make it 2 years in a row with Saggese? We will see. But here is what Anthony said about him. Sticking with a theme in this piece and not going with obvious answers, I'll stray away from Nationals outfielder Dylan Cruz, who is MLB's #1 overall prospect, even though I do think he's going to bust loose this year. It seems the stage is set for Saggese to have a big 2025. He already got his big league debut out of the way in September, then went on to rake in the Arizona Fall League. The Cardinals are obviously trying to move Nolan Arenado in the trade market, and that would open the door to an everyday opportunity for the 22-year-old Saggese, whose bat-to-ball skills should translate and who could man second base if Brendan Donovan shifts over to third. Now, you love to hear it, obviously. Positive stuff, talking about a prospect who the Cardinals obviously like. National media obviously likes him. MLB.com, the pipeline, they like Saggese. They think he's going to be a solid player. But there are a couple of obstacles in the way for Saggese to achieve such a goal and for all of this to happen. So we're going to dig into those next for you on Locked On Cardinals. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Now, FanDuel has had so many ways for you to pick up a W this season. I hope you've been able to get in on the action. Not only can you bet on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score, you can also build a parlay, make things a little more interesting to really improve your return if you win. Because, if the bet itself is a little more difficult, the money you would win is a lot more. So that's how that whole thing works. So if you haven't been there yet, I want you to go ahead and visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Please make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. You can leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter X anytime you want. Your feedback is always welcome and encouraged. To hear something positive about the Cardinals at this point of the offseason where they have done nothing was nice to hear. I won't lie, especially from a national media member. I was like, ooh, that's pretty cool. But there are some things standing in the way of Thomas Saggese fulfilling that prophecy of NL Rookie of the Year. The main problem the Cardinals are facing at this moment with Saggese is when and where is he going to get the playing time necessary to get such an award, right? Now, obviously, things can change. Moves can be made still. Still got some time here in the offseason. Injuries could and normally do occur. But right now, they still have Nolan Arenado on this roster. We just talked about this in our last episode, how the percentage that Arenado returns to the team in 2025 is growing ever so slightly each and every week. I still believe a deal is going to get done. I think it will happen. I think it's in the best interest for both the Cardinals and for Nolan Arenado to make a clean break and for Nolan to go chase a ring with one of these big market teams that he wants to play for, and for the Cardinals to move on salary wise and to open up slots for guys like Thomas Saggese. But it's looking less and less like it will be an ideal trade for the Cardinals. If you had to pick which side's going to bend a little bit, which I brought up in the last episode, I think it's the Cardinals who are probably going to have to do that. Probably going to have to eat more money than they want to. Because the Cardinals, I mean, they had that sweet deal with the Astros set up, and it looked like they were good to go, and fell apart. So probably they're the ones who are going to have to eat more money than they want to. But, eventually the situation's got to get settled, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Arenado to be back on this roster next year. But it still could happen. It still could happen. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. Now, there's another Nolan situation that I want to talk about, and that's with Nolan Gorman. Now, remember, Nolan Gorman is also still a name that, in my eyes, will get every single opportunity to prove that he can still and will be a force in the middle of this lineup. I've repeatedly said that punting on Nolan Gorman right now would be foolish. It would be foolish. Even for those of you who want to trade him, where you're like, I don't trust him. I don't think he's going to be good enough. He's always going to swing and miss, and it's going to drive me nuts. I understand that. But his value at this very moment is nowhere near what it should and could be. So no way am I making a deal that involved him unless it's some sort of like blockbuster deal where you just can't say no. And that's something I don't see happening at all. Now, reports are that he's been working with new hitting coach Brant Brown all offseason. And personally, I hope he arrives in Jupiter this spring in great shape, both physically and mentally. I brought it up before where I don't think it's the physical side of things that Nolan Gorman has a problem with. He just strikes me as a guy that gets in his own head too much, where mentally he gets down on himself, self-esteem drops real fast, and that's something I think if he's able to not be so hard on himself about stuff and just go out and play the game and have some fun, I think that we could start seeing him tattoo balls off the rooftops at Roger Dean Stadium coming up in the spring in less than 2 months. Because don't look now, folks. I know we're like, oh, we just started the new year and everything, but the first spring training game is on February 22nd. Report dates, they're not available yet, but week of the 10th is probably a good target time to consider. But, I want to see Nolan Gorman do well. I think he's got the talent to be very successful in this day and age of baseball, to be the hitter that you want as like a number 5 type of guy in your lineup. That power is no joke. But he's going to get a chance to do it, and he's going to get chances to play, whether it's at second or it's at third, DHing. Obviously, they're going to give him a shot. So Saggese is behind him, and then there's the super utility guy in Brandon Donovan, who can start at second, third, or in left field if you need him to. If an Arenado deal goes down, the consensus thought in every reporting I've seen, everybody's got their opinions on where they think people should play. But the consensus, and from people that I, know the Cardinals pretty darn well, specifically Katie Wu from The Athletic, Gorman is the guy that would end up sliding over to start at third base if Arenado got traded. And unless Donovan goes to left field again, which could happen, instead of second base, then where is Thomas Saggese going to get these at-bats? Where are they going to come from? Now, this is a good problem to have. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you've got enough talented young players to go around like this where you want to see what they can do, which again is part of the goal of this offseason for the Cardinals. One of the reasons why they wanted to move on from a lot of these names. Again, I'll tell you, having Wilson Contreras stick around, having Arenado maybe not going anywhere like that, that's kind of a problem because they want Thomas Saggese to get at bats. They want Nolan Gorman to get them. They want Jordan Walker to get them. They want Lars Nootbaar to stay healthy and get these at-bats. They want all these guys to play instead of established veterans who are good and have big contracts. They would like to see some of these young guys see what they can actually do at the major league level. But like I said, things can change. Like, what if Nato is traded? And what happens if Gorman disappoints? What if he falls flat again and becomes just a platoon guy against righties? Is that a horrible thing? No. But is that where you want him to be? No. But that would open up the door for more at-bats for Saggese. He would get to go up against the lefties while Gorman sat against the lefties, which not the end of the world. Saggese would also get the first crack at starts at shortstop, I would think, if Mason Wynn, obviously a day off here or there, he's going to need those. And heaven forbid, if he had to deal with any sort of injury, I think Saggese is the guy that slides right in at shortstop for you. But at the moment, if things stay the way they are at this very moment, it's going to be tough for Saggese to be much more than a depth piece and a bench bat at the beginning of the season, unless he's de-aging, which is that's a possibility too. But you've still got Alec Burleson, who just was one of your best hitters on the team last year, led your team in home runs last season, looking for consistent at bats still. I mean, you're not going to bench him unless he's facing a lefty, which was a tough gig for him last year. But Saggese could get some DH spots against lefties if Burley struggles against them again this year. If Natto's on this team, if Natto needs a day off, I'm sure they can, circle things around and get it to where, he's at least on the field a couple of times a week. But again, I don't necessarily think this is a terrible thing. I'm not telling you that this is a big problem. We got to figure this out. I'm not saying that. It's not an issue if he starts the season this way. The ultimate goal is just to win games. And if you've got guys like Arenado, Gorman, and Donovan, and they're all still here and they're all playing well and they're all hitting well, that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. You want that. So JC is still just 22 years old. We're not talking about a prospect who's like 25, 26, and the clock's ticking on this kid. He's not turning 23 until April. So it's not that big of a deal. He doesn't have to start right away to put his career on the right path for success. But it appears to me they're very anxious to get him in the lineup. They want to see what he can do, and can't really blame him. But what are your thoughts on this? How would you like to see this all go down? What would be your ideal combo? All right. If Natto gets traded, would you prefer Gorman at third, Donnie at second, and a combination of Newt, Burley, Ciani, Victor Scott, and Walker in the outfield with Saggese on the bench? Or would you prefer Donnie over third base, Gorman at second? What about Gorman at third, Saggese at second, Donovan in left field with Newt Barton center field and Walker in right field, which in my mind, I think that's the ideal way to do this if you can pull it off. And then you would have like Burleson doing your DH duties. Ivan Herrera would be your starter behind the plate. Contreras is over at first. Obviously, Burley can play some first base too. I mean, there's a lot of combinations you can come up with here. So what do you think? I want to know what your thoughts are on this so we can talk about them in a fan feedback segment, which we will get to next week. But next, we're going to take a look around the league at the remaining big free agents that are still available on the market on Locked On Cardinals. Now, I love going to live events. My everydayers, you know this. One of my favorite things in the world is go to a live sporting event or to go to a concert or theater or comedy. So many good comedians. They keep coming out with stuff on like Netflix and everything. Makes me want to go see them all in person. Love going to comedy shows. There's just nothing like going to live events, feeling the excitement and the anticipation of heading to the event, the energy of the crowds. It's hard to beat. And when I need tickets to go to places, to go see my favorite acts and favorite events and favorite teams, I use the Gametime app because I know it's the easiest way to find the seats that I want. And believe it or not, Gametime has now made it even easier to get tickets to your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. It's a feature that filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I got a buddy of mine who's a big Kansas Jayhawk fan. I know. If you're a Mizzou fan, you're like, what? I know. But he uses the Gametime app all the time. We talk about it because he uses it to go watch Kansas play in different cities. So something he's looking forward to throughout the rest of this basketball season. Post Malone and Jelly Roll coming to Busch Stadium in May. You can use this particular Gametime Picks feature to narrow down the seats to only the ones that you want to see. And it's really, really simple how they do it and have it set up for you. It just takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. So do it with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. For your second listen, you can find Locked On MLB with our baseball guru, Sully, bringing you a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on all the teams during this offseason with opinions and news and notes and everything. He's got it all. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. So the Cardinals, as we know, were not expected to make any major signings this offseason. Even if they trade Nolan Arenado away and move a bunch of money, that's not what this offseason is about for the St. Louis Cardinals. But the rest of the league continues to wait and wonder, where are guys like Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman and Anthony Santander going to go? Where could they land? What's the best place for those guys? Well, latest news, and this is important for the Cardinals because, the Nolan Arenado market, it kind of coincides with what's going on with Alex Bregman. And the latest news has the Detroit Tigers and the Toronto Blue Jays as the favorites to not only sign Alex Bregman, but Anthony Santander as well. Now, we've talked about the Tigers and Bregman before. We don't have to rehash that. But the Blue Jays are a team that, they've struck out trying to sign mega free agents like Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto. I mean, they were among the finalists as far as we know, but they were the bridesmaid and not the bride for both of those guys. So what it does tell you, though, is they're at least willing to spend the big money that it takes to snag some of these particular players. They don't have a clear-cut guy at third base on the roster at the moment, so Bregman would make a lot of sense, when Toronto is usually a pretty good place for offensive players. That's what they like. So that makes a lot of sense if Bregman were to go to Toronto. John Paul Morosi says that both teams are also in on Anthony Santander, who popped 44 dingers last year for the Orioles. Santander is a guy that I would think he fit with the Cardinals could use really, really well, but this isn't the offseason where they're chasing free agents, so I wouldn't think about that at all. But, he's a guy that switch hitter. He's got power from both sides of the plate. He can play both corner outfield spots. Obviously, he can DH. He's got some flexibility to him. Will he reach 44 home runs again? I don't know. That was a career high. But 35, is that so bad to get 35 home runs out of him? I don't think so. So I'm a little shocked more teams aren't in on Anthony Santander. What do they know that we don't, huh? What about Pete Alonso? Pete Alonso to the Angels? The Angels? What? John Heyman reports that he believes Angels owner Art Moreno wants to add another big bat, citing Alonso as well as free agent outfielder Anthony Santander. See, there's another one. As a place that he could go, that the Angels would be considering Alonso. They say it would be a little surprising on a few fronts. Mainly, the Angels haven't signed a free agent to a deal north of $100 million since signing Anthony Rendon to that 7-year, $245 million albatross of a deal back in December of 2019, which has been one of the worst contracts in baseball for a few years now. Alonso is widely expected to receive a deal upwards of $100 million. For me, Pete Alonso was worth it because he is just so dangerous in the middle of an order. The idea of him in the middle of an order for any team is, I would be excited about it. If in a Cardinals perfect world where we could, spend whatever the hell we want on whoever we want, I would rather have Anthony Santander in left field, and I would rather have Pete Alonso sitting down there at first base, and Contreras should just be a DH and catch sometimes if he has to, but that's not going to happen. Somebody that I know a lot of fans have talked about and would love to see in a Cardinal uniform, Max Scherzer. A little Max Scherzer buzz is circulating. Heyman suggests that Scherzer is fielding interest from 4 teams, although he says it's unclear who those clubs are. I don't know how he got it down to 4 teams, but whatever. In another, again, in a perfect world, a happier world for the Cardinals, you would be able to move on from a guy like Michaelis and Matz and then bring home Scherzer on a 1-year deal with an option year like they did with Lance Lynn and what they did with Kyle Gibson this past year, so that we could finally see him in a Cardinal uniform, which is something that fans have begged for many, many years. Apparently they had a chance to get him and he was going to come here, and the Cardinals said no thanks, and that didn't work out. So there's another one with egg on the face of John Mozeliak. But at the moment, there are no spots for anybody any other starting pitchers to join this roster, so I wouldn't hold my breath on that, which is a bummer. Instead, I'd imagine he'd go to a team that, has better World Series aspirations or, at least playoffs at the very least. And sadly, the Cardinals, although competitive rebuild is what we're trying to do here, they are not among those types of teams as we stand here today that you would consider a favorite to make the playoffs. I just hope he stays out of the NL Central. I don't want to see Max with the Brewers or the Cubs or the Reds. I'm not really worried about the Pirates. But what about some other teams? The Giants have been brought up before as teams that, they're trying to, fill out a nice rotation out west and compete with the Dodgers and the Padres. I think that makes sense. The team I'm thinking about, though, the Atlanta Braves for Max Scherzer. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. They still got Spencer Strider coming back from an injury. Max Fried just left via free agency. Chris Sale had a nice NL Cy Young resurrection season with them. And, Max Scherzer had a tough year last year. He had a career low innings pitched, and it was only like 40-something innings last year. So it's not like he's coming off some great season. But can you see the Braves going and they would have Sale and then go get Scherzer and Verlander? Can you see the Braves just doing that? It seems like a very Braves move. And I don't know. I wouldn't hate it so much. I don't know how much juice they have left. The Mets tried to do that a couple years ago, Scherzer and Verlander, and it didn't pan out so well. So I don't know if that's the best idea, but I don't know. One of those guys, but Scherzer feels like an Atlanta Brave fit. Seems to make sense there. But we can always hold out hope that someday, before he's 50, he might become a St. Louis Cardinal. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Twitter X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Please subscribe on YouTube, and help our channel and love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason. Do not be shy in the comments section. Let's chat. Let's get it together. Let's talk about everything going on with the Cardinals and around the league. Mi casa, su casa. Let's have some fun. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and thank you for tuning in to Locked On Cardinals.